Any specific questions that we didn't answer during it? I don't know how much time we actually have.
We're fine.
Okay.
I don't know that I have a question per se, but I had a thought as we were going through the surveys and seeing how they would break apart atheist and agnostic versus non-religious, and thinking about how those might be defined in my own mind. I would consider the atheist or agnostic to be a person that had invested some mental time into deciding what it is and taking a position, even if it is agnostic, and saying, I have no position, that's my position. And the non-religious might be a person that simply doesn't consider it, hasn't considered it.
Possibly. I think there's a lot of people that use the word agnostic and haven't really thought about it. On the atheist side, I think you're right. And it's true for humanism, too, which is one reason I tend to use the humanism word more than I do atheist, because it allows people to have that conversation, and then you can bring in kind of atheist ideas without making them all defensive to start with. But I agree with you on atheist. I'm not sure on agnostic, because I've heard a lot of people use that word, and I'm not sure they know what it means. And they bother me in some sense more than the religious people do. At least the religious people have a specific thing to believe in, and if they really do believe that, they're acting to what they believe in. The agnostics are saying, I have no proof of it, and there's no reason to think that way, but I do anyway. I think there's something out there.
The question is irrelevant.
What's that?
Or the question is irrelevant.
Yeah.
I've got a brief comment on this before I say my question. I've actually come to the opposite conclusion, that people say agnostic when they've actually really thought it out, and they've thought, well, what are people going to think when I tell them, when I walk up to them on the street and they ask, so are you going to church on Sunday? No, I'm an atheist. Now that won't work. And I've met lots of people who are atheists, and when I talk to them, when you break down their ideas, they are atheists, but they go around telling people they're agnostic
they don't want to
because they don't like the label. And whereas the atheist people, they just realize it and they just flip straight over, and they don't think about the social repercussions that that's going to have. Like,
it's like I use the word humanist.
Getting on to my question, I was unaware of the term new atheist until I actually came to this meeting. I personally now believe that I myself am a new atheist. I believe that religion is something that is, as a whole, unproductive for human society, and I think it causes more harm than help.
That's what they're purporting, yeah.
And that's
you should check out some of those books.
Yeah, that's the reason that I think it should be taken away. But I noticed that there was some negative connotation with new atheism.
You mean from me?
Yeah.
Specifically.
And also just from
that's probably my personal stance on things more than anything. I agree with where they want to go. I don't think the world's ready for it today.
Yeah. And
I think we have to have productive educational stance on things. And I actually do think there's some value in religion. I just don't think it's the divine side of it. There's some social value, there's some historical value, there's a collective consciousness value, there's some spirituality value. There's lots of those things of value, and I think we have to replace those with something instead of just ridding the world of religion. I think if we ridded the world of religion today, we'd be in serious trouble. So I don't disagree with where they're headed, I just think we're 2 centuries from it. And I think we need people like this, by the way. I'm just not one of them. I would rather.
I prefer to think 1 century. I want to be able to see it.
Yeah. We'll all be living forever by then anyway.
Christopher Hitchens' book, God is Not Great, his subtitle is Religion Poisons Everything. And those of you who know me, I have debated with me and myself and others about whether religion poisons everything. And he's almost got me convinced that religion does poison everything. I think one of the things that new atheists, I think, are somewhat hampered with is that some of them come across as angry atheists.
Intolerant.
Yeah.
Dawkins is a great example because he really rags on people for being intolerant, and his book is one of the most intolerant books.
I think if you watch the evolution of his earlier writings until this book,
you see where he got there.
You see that transformation.
Yeah. The great thing about these and other ones, and it's not just these books in psychology and all kinds of other things, is we're finally trying to study religion from a scientific standpoint. Many of these books look at it scientifically, especially Stinger's book, and he specifically goes after it as a science. But even there are psychology books that are looking at what's happening in the brain when somebody's in a euphoric religious state. Okay, there's a book called The Alphabet versus the Goddess, a great book that talks about how the introduction of an alphabet instead of a pictographic writing style brought the downfall of polytheisms and brought in male-dominated monotheisms. I mean, there's scientific studies now that are actually looking, and we were never allowed to do this before. And the other great thing about this is they're finally getting published, right? Hundreds of books are out there now about this, and publishers would not have touched this 20 years ago. So those are incredibly good trends. Open this up to debate, and they will lose. They can't debate. It's faith.
I think there's another alternative than, quote, getting rid of the religion. From my point of view, I've come to a point where I'm just kind of tired of religion getting away with saying things and not being challenged. So I think that one, you can take new atheism and spin it a little bit and say when the religionists say that we're a Christian nation or that this and this and this and this is true, I think we need to be more encouraged to challenge that and say, oh, really? Is that really true? Where did you get that? And not get them, I'm just kind of tired of them getting away with and assuming
they get away with them all.
that there's going to be a religious test for president, and the presidents all have to go to what's the pastor's name, whatever his name was, and even Obama had to go to him. He had him at his, and you had to kind of bow and pay homage to the religion.
Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping that day is going to go, and it's going to go because we challenge it. We just can't let them get away with it.
And we do have organizations doing that now.
Yeah.
Perfect.